I want to talk to you about Lego Horizon because I have been really enjoying my time with it, but this comes as someone who isn't really all that experienced with either Lego games and who isn't like a diehard fan of Horizon anyway. I really liked Zero Dawn, I really liked Forbidden West, but it wouldn't be in my Mount Rushmore, as it were, of PlayStation exclusives. So yeah, I think you have finished the game. How have you found it so far?
Yes, I have. I finished off the story mode, and then there's obviously bits and pieces that I can do beyond that. But, I mean, I would just say now, out of the gate, I guess, if you're enjoying it up to the point where you are, that's good, because it mostly probably doesn't change. It's fairly one note, but it's strong. As a Lego game, it's strong. I think I haven't played many Lego games over the last few years, but I have played, the Star Wars ones and a bit of the Lord of the Rings one and stuff like that. And it is similar in the sort of sense of quality and the tone and all of that. It's a very strong Lego game.
It's simplistic, but in a way that I think does benefit the overall gameplay. Like, I think it is targeting that much younger audience than even some of the more recent Lego titles, and I've had a lot of fun playing it in co-op because it is not really that demanding, but it still is satisfying, and it still seems to have at least a lot of content even from only the 4 hours that I've played. Yeah, I imagine it does get a little bit repetitive as it goes on, but I am more into it than I expected to be.
Yeah, I would agree. I felt kind of the same. I was having a great time playing co-op with it as well. As someone that is big into Horizon, I was really impressed with how they balance things out in terms of the exploration versus the combat. To a certain extent, there are issues with it in the sense that the exploration is not really a thing. I remember in previous Lego games, for example, you would reach an object and it'd be like, oh, you can't go any further unless you're playing as XYZ character, because they're able to open these kinds of doors and that kind of thing. This doesn't have any of that, which is sort of a shame. It really only has four playable characters and then a bunch of skins, which we'll talk about as well. But the very clear focus in this game is the combat, which is not a terrible thing because it feels really good, shockingly good. I didn't think a Lego game could feel this satisfying to play, but the fact they've got all the little bits, the most important things from Horizon into the combat. You have scanning with the focus, with a little tap of L1, I think it is. It shows you where machines are and also parts on them that you can then attack to score massive damage and get more experience points from and that kind of thing. There's elemental arrows and all that business. You've got other gadgets, some of which are clearly pulled from Horizon. There's the Frost Wave, not the Frost Weave, which is an area of effect thing. And there's also some really wacky, typically zany Lego stuff in there, like the hot dog cart. Where
a personal favourite, by the way.
Yeah, of course. And it's pretty good as well, which helps. The hot dog vendor man who throws exploding hot dogs, as you do in a Lego game. But the combat is really satisfying, which is good because it makes up the bulk of the experience. This game is largely, here's an open area of combat and then a corridor which you run from A to B to get to the other. And occasionally there's a C where there's a bunch of silver studs to guide you where the extra hidden stuff is. There's not a lot of actual out of the way hidden stuff.
Yeah.
It's fairly handholdy, but the combat's good, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, I do also agree with how impressively they have just transferred the kind of Horizon combat model over. There is, even though, like I said, it's quite simplistic earlier on, there's still that ability to target weak points and to exploit those weak points with the fire arrows, for instance, to set off the canisters, kind of how you would in the main game. And that has been satisfying not as much as, but just like it is in that original game and its sequel to, ping off with an arrow, the weak point of an enemy and really dismantle them in that way. It isn't just kind of mindless button mashing. There is a level of tactical gameplay, if you could call it that, to it, which I was again surprised with. Like you said, the bulk of the game is made up of that side of kind of those combat arenas, but it's been very satisfying to cycle through your abilities and in playing co-op the other characters' abilities as well, because Aloy has the bow, Val has the spear. You've got all of these different play styles, even though you do have more limited characters to play as. I've found them, because they all have their unique gadgets, because they all have their unique abilities, differentiable enough, and they all add to that overall kind of mix of combat potential, I suppose, to,
Sure.
you know, and I think it feels interactive as well. You know, you're not just doing the Horizon thing of pinging the weak points off, but you can get a bit more, slightly more imaginative with it, where you can set the shrubbery on fire. You know, you can use the environment, you can use the elements in that way to gain an advantage in the combat, which honestly, I'm only playing it on normal, and there have been a few times where I have been killed. You know, it has felt like I need to react faster, I need to think more about what I'm doing, so it demands a certain level of finesse that that stops it being boring, I find.
Yes, it isn't. You can't just route yourself to a spot and fire. It's very much running around the environment, using, as you say, what's available to you. There's like little ponds in certain places that you can shock as well, so that when machines walk over them, they get sort of paralyzed or whatever. All kinds of stuff like that. You have to sort of run and gun and then run again. It's interesting that you say that you feel the characters are sort of separated enough. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because there are 4 characters and they're all essentially ranged characters. Aloy has the bow, Val has the spear, which is essentially, I mean, even the animation is literally the same as the bow, it just doesn't have a string. We also have Erend, who has a hammer, as you would expect. He's kind of a more challenging character to use, as is Teersa, who's kind of the surprise character. Out of everyone they could have picked for the 4th, I don't know if anyone would have predicted the little old lady. But she has exploding ducks and things. Sure. And that one's the absolute challenge mode, I found. I used it a few times. It was like, this is getting too hard now. Because you really have to route yourself to the spot, because it makes you kind of choose your arc of throw. And if there are a lot of enemies around, you can get screwed over. So it is kind of cool that those options are there, because I imagine a lot of people that are going to put the most amount of time into this, and probably the audience that this is directed to, this game, is Horizon fans who are parents. That's the big vibe I got from this. If you have a kid who has shown some interest in the franchise that you like, or you would just like to introduce them to it in a way that makes sense to them, that they can enjoy, this feels like a great game to play if you have, a young video gamer in your life, because the co-op is good fun, and there is a lot of variety, in the sense that there is a challenge character that could kind of take care of maybe a younger player.
Yeah, 100%. You know,
individual difficulties as well, I think, if you're playing co-op.
A lot of difficulty settings I found. You know, it's not just, it didn't seem like just the basics that you would normally assume. I feel like there's a lot of variation within how you can get, you know, it's as complex as you kind of want it to be, right? You can just dumb everything down, and you could be probably a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old having this be your first game. But like you said, you can also be playing it as someone who is older, whether that's a parent or, you know, you're playing it with your partner or whatever, and get enough out of it, get enough challenge, get enough satisfaction. And for me, a lot of that satisfaction and a lot of the game's charm, unsurprisingly, I don't know how you feel about this, being more into the Horizon world, but it comes from the presentation, and it comes from the writing, and it comes from the characters. I have fallen in love with the characters across the first few hours of play. I listen, right? I'm not much of a Lego game person, but I love the Lego movies, and I think that humor, that style of humor that, of course, is in the games as well, like is transferred across here nicely. I'm here for DJ Silence, you know, like I really popped for that scene. I thought it was really funny. I think the voice actors are doing a lot to bring that level of charm, to bring that level of personality to the forefront, and I think that's kind of topped off with the game. I think the game looks gorgeous. I think it genuinely is a real stunner. The environments, they're so colourful, they're so nicely put together, so intricate, but more importantly than that, I think it's in the characters' animations. You know, the first thing I noticed, and what separated it from some of the, again, admittedly few Lego games that I've played, is the animation style, where you do get the kind of more exaggerated expressions from the characters, but you have that nice, I don't even know what you would describe it as, but that kind of half-frame animation, where it kind of...
Yes, it's all a bit jittery, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit jittery, but in a very visually impressive way. I'm sure we'll throw some footage of that so people know what I'm talking about on the video side of things. But I just found that kind of, that sense of presentation, that aesthetic, it did so much for me.
Yeah, no, this big thing I wanted to get into the aesthetics in general and just the way the game sounds and looks is great across the board. It's obvious. I mean, it's 2024, so obviously it's all in engine. But like, yeah, playing in quality mode with all your custom skins and stuff, and seeing that in the cutscenes is good fun. You know, dressing characters up as penguins and hot dogs and whatever else is very, very fun. The environments feel like the designers had a great time making them. That's what I got from it. Obviously, Lego can be lots of different things, but I don't know how many Lego IPs or how many IPs they've made Lego games of with this much sort of like exterior environments, jungles and deserts and that kind of stuff. Just, yeah, it's all impressively done. It looks great. It sounds great. A lot of the voice actors is the voice cast from the core games come across, and they're clearly having fun as well, because not that Horizon is a humorless series, but this is, the zany, wacky version. So the characters kind of reflect that as well. To the point where I don't really think they are the characters at all, really. Like, they all become definable by one key trait, which is probably fine if you're of a certain sort of age or you're coming in from a certain point of view. But as a fan, Aloy likes pickles, Erend is dumb and he likes donuts, Val likes superheroes and falls over a lot. That's their entire thing. They're all just defined by one thing, which kind of perfectly leads into the fact that to say that this is a Cliff Notes version of Horizon is still too strong. This is Horizon via the way of identifiable imagery, and that's about it. It's got Aloy in it, it's got machines, there are rusted cars in jungles and deserts, but in terms of the story, there almost isn't one. They cut so much out, which I understand. We'll get into it.
I want to talk to you more about this because obviously I'm such early days into the story mode, but as someone who hasn't played Zero Dawn in a while, but still remembers, like the main beats of that and the main overall arc, it is interesting to see what they have overlooked and what is included. And when they do replicate like a major scene from the original, so far I found that to be funny. I found it to be satisfying. What they do with Rost is great, in my opinion, making him the narrator, having his big moment with Aloy go down the way it does with, so much life, so much slapstick humor. That made me confident in how things may go, but obviously you've actually got to the end of the game, so how are those arcs represented, and do you get much out of it as a lover of the Horizon story, or do you think this is, I don't know, who do you think would benefit from the way the story is told more, like newcomers, like kids who maybe haven't played the original, or is it satisfying as someone seeing this different, zanier interpretation of it?
That's the thing, right? Because I wanted to come into this and review it for what it is rather than what it isn't, but it's so inextricably attached to that, and obviously it depends on what you're looking for out of it. And I don't know if there is a right answer to that, other than you just need to know what you're going to get out of this before you come into it. It's not even kind of like a zany retelling of Zero Dawn. Not really. You get a lot of the most basic setup in that Aloy is an outcast, Helios is a bad guy, and that's basically it. Beyond that, there's no Zero Dawn in the game, for example. Which, okay, sure, that's probably why it's called Horizon Adventures, and Zero Dawn isn't in the title. It is not a Lego version of the first game, which is what I thought it was going to be. And I have mixed feelings on that and I want to talk about this as well, but I'm kind of bored of just doing the first game over and over again. So I'm glad they did something different. I just wish they did more with it, I just wish they'd kind of set out on their own path instead of, we have the bad guy from the first game. They didn't have the proving, but they have the whole Aloy's an outcast and she's looking for her mum thing, and you do kind of follow the same path of finding out who the creator of Aloy is and all that stuff. But there's no Zero Dawn, so there's no Hades, so it's called Buried Shadow in this, and there's no origin story for that. He's just a scary blob that you fight at the end. It's just weird that there's no context for a lot of these things, so if you're coming in without that context as well, I do wonder are you going to have a bunch of questions about this stuff? Because I don't talk about why the world is in the state that it is, but does it matter to players coming in, especially younger players, obviously, where it's just like, I want to fight some cool machines that happen to look like bulls and chickens and deers and stuff or whatever else. But there's 4 areas that you go through, and each kind of has hey, we're going to do this little task over and over again. The first one is rescue a bunch of people. The second one, I think, is
Hunting the Thunderjaw, I think, the second one.
Hunting the Thunderjaw. There's almost nothing to it. So I've got very mixed feelings on that because I would have liked more, and I continually want more from this franchise, even if it is by way of Zanyville. But this is, the basic bare bones.
That is interesting because, like I say, only being, I guess, from what you've described there, just under halfway through, I thought there would have been more integration with the original story because, you have like most of the characters involved. You have Elizabeth, for instance, and I've enjoyed her interactions with Aloy and the rest of the gang, but it is, even from what I've played, it's reducing a lot of the nuances in a way that I don't even think you needed necessarily to do for a younger audience.
That's what I wondered as well.
Yeah,
to be honest,
just like sort of not really, a huge part of the early experience of Zero Dawn is like Aloy being this outcast, right? Is like kind of being maybe distrusted at times and being at least conflicted within herself that she lives separate to the rest of like the culture and the society and stuff. Whereas here it's like, oh no, she was just like, she was out there, now she's in, and then she's like the hero, and then there's the bad guy, and it's like, I feel like I'm not asking for it to be a political thriller or anything, but I could have done with, some of that friction remaining, because ultimately, especially early on, like you said, it's you need to free these people who are being captured, you need to do this, and it's like, here's the bad guy, here's the good guy, and the characters are more defined by, like you said there, like individual personality traits, which again, maybe it's just because we have played the original that we know kind of what we're missing in that regard. I don't know.
Right.
And I do think it ultimately works overall, but it is just, I think you summed it up really well in that it's Horizon. It's not even the Cliff Notes. It's Horizon iconography. It's almost Horizon as described by someone who has played Horizon a little bit poorly in a way, which makes it interesting to me that it was co-developed by Guerrilla. So it's like, it's obviously their choice to do it this way. And maybe they were just sick of retelling Zero Dawn over and over again in the exact same way that they wanted to do something different. But I guess before we move on to what this means to the franchise as a whole, right? Yeah, go on.
They haven't done anything different.
Yeah.
They've just taken stuff away. They haven't put anything in its place. That's the problem. I think that's my issue with it. It doesn't add anything new whatsoever. This is just a poor tracing of the outline of the series. They went, here's the broad setup without any of the depth to Zero Dawn. And also, inextricably halfway through, the blight from Forbidden West is in it. The red tendril mass that sort of kills off, all the environments and stuff. That's in it, and it's associated with Buried Shadow now for no reason. You're right, absolutely just, this is Horizon iconography. But hot dogs and donuts.
And you know what? That's I'm still enjoying it in spite of.
Oh no, it's fun to play.
Yeah, like on its own, I think there's enough charm. To me, I've really enjoyed the sort of base building mechanic because you have.
Okay.
Is it New Haven? No,
yeah,
have I made that up?
Heart?
Mother's Heart. Why have I said what
New
is
Haven?
New Haven?
Is definitely something.
That is something. I hope who knows what that is? Mother's Heart. The complete opposite of what I said there. But yeah, you have Mother's Heart, which you kind of build up as you go, and you collect the golden bricks, and you can create new structures and different decorations and stuff. Again, playing co-op, I've enjoyed indulging in that. It doesn't mean too much. There's not loads of depth ascribed to it, but it has had me searching the environments for, as limited as they are, there are still a few hidden areas, I suppose, that have been satisfying enough, and then bringing up back all of your currency to buy the new outfits, which I have had a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
I think it's a strange selection of stuff that they've chosen, because you have all of the Horizon themed outfits where you take and the threads of different characters or different enemies or what have you, and then you've got other just Lego branded stuff, the Lego City, the Lego amusements, which I haven't messed around too with, though I did make Aloy the green-head prisoner last night, and I thought that was quite cool. And I've done some levels as an ice cream cone. But it's that kind of just, here's some Lego stuff, which I can get a lot out of because I don't play many of these games, but I don't know if like diehard Lego fans would find that a little bit wanting. Maybe they want something slightly different, maybe more unique and distinctly PlayStation or distinctly Horizon spins on this stuff, because it does tie into that kind of like wider Lego brand and recognition.
I should have looked this up because I know there's Ratchet and Clank skins in here somewhere. I've completed the game and I haven't got them, so I wonder if they really tucked away or what the situation is. But beyond that, I think you're right in the sense that it is mostly just Lego stuff, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I do like that it gives you something extra to do if you're that way inclined. And I also like that there's like a community board of things to do to get more gold bricks, which you can then spend to buy more areas, upgrade more areas of the town. And a lot of them are like, play wearing this outfit or this kind of thing, which gives you an excuse to fool around with the skins. Which also, they've done something really cool here that I don't know, again, if this is a thing in LEGO games right now, but individual customization. You're not just slapping on a skin. You can then go, I want this head, this hair, this cloak, and all this stuff. That's really cool because that's such a integral part of LEGO for me. I remember as a kid just like putting the wrong legs on the wrong body and stuff like that. Like being able to mess around with that stuff's kind of fun. You could just have a green-haired Aloy, for example, on a regular outfit, or whatever you want to do to make the wackiest stuff. That stuff's kind of cool. I'll give it that much. So yeah, the Mother's Heart thing, it's fine. It had a bit of a lack of depth for me, but at the same time, I kind of appreciated that they also just didn't go too far with it and ask too much of you. It's like a constant stream of like, hey, you've now got new customization options, so you can have new potted plants and traffic lights and whatever else.
I think that's how I would sum up my experience with the game so far. It is very enjoyable. I do think it's recommendable, especially if you are playing it on co-op and you just kind of want a fun, light-hearted, personality-filled game. But yeah, like what I keep going back to is that it does lack the depth of the other Lego games that are obviously developed by other people, but there isn't really so far much in the way of true exploration, like you said, which is interesting considering you are adapting an open world game. The fact that the levels are way more segmented and way more straightforward than you might expect was interesting. There's not loads to, I mean, you have like an upgrade tree, which again brings over like the upgrades from Horizon, and that is satisfying enough. It adds enough depth, but just don't be expecting like too much in the way of, I think, at least from what I can gather so far, hidden areas or like that really intense dedication to secrets that I do associate with similar Lego titles.
Right.
It is kind of more, it's not bite size, but it's just it's here for a good time, not a long time, perhaps. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yes.